It's time once again, as we're going to be diving back into BT21 and covering our next hero deck. It is time to see the hero of Sabers himself, as we're going to be jumping in and seeing both Masaru or Marcus and Agumon, as it's time to review SHINEGREYMON, as we're going to be looking over the cards, as you're going to get informed by them today. But as always, before we get into it, I have one little request of you, and that is simply to go ahead and accelerate the sub count. It helps us out as we're growing the ad army, and with your help, we can get there faster together. But as always, you know when you're watching What's the Scoop, you know that when you get a first look, so do I, as you can sit down, relax, put me in the background, put me on while you're working, do whatever you want, watch the video, and listen to the great information coming from this video, so you have to go nowhere else, as you can get all the information you need here to help you get started and inform you about the cards coming out of these sets. But also is an archive, so I did get to mention this before. If you do need to come back at any time looking for cards in different archetypes, or sorry, different sets, you can go back, look up the actual video, and go ahead and watch them. So it does help out if you're just wondering about support and kind of how it functions. But today, we're going to be jumping straight into the boat, as now it's time to dump into SHINEGREYMON, as this deck is very interesting. Every time it shows up, I feel like it always gets a line of support. I know people could say, oh, well, that's about how Digimon does it. They want to give a line of support. But I mean, really, someone must really love SHINEGREYMON, because I think out of every set SHINEGREYMON has actually come in, it's come with almost a whole line, except for BT9, where it had SHINEGREYMON X. Every other set, for the most part, feels like it comes with an entire set line for, like, SHINEGREYMON support, or even something like Victory Greymon, which is technically SHINEGREYMON support. They all kind of line up to some degree together, so everything could be used together. But I bring this up because I always just find it funny that this happens a lot, because someone must really like it. But yeah, jumping into it, we're going to start off with Coromon, as it's time to jump into the first egg. This one is our hero trait, as well as a lesser, but more importantly, that when during your turn, once per turn, when any of your yellow or red tamers suspend, you get to draw one card. So very simple and very flexible, already existing in the archetype. Jumping into the Agumon, specifically the Savers one from the BT21, we have it being able to Digivolve on top of Coromon, or at level 2 with the hero trait for a cost of 0. Pretty standard for this. And then during your turn, while your opponent has a level 6 or higher Digimon, or you have 3 or more hero trait tamers with different names, this Digimon may Digivolve into SHINEGREYMON in the hand for Digi-Evolution cost of 4, ignoring its Digi-Evolution requirements. And then for its inheritable during your turn, this Digimon gets 2000 DP. Very cool. As we jump into the first level 4, and the only level 4 of this line support, we have GeoGreymon. GeoGreymon for BT21 can Digivolve on top of any level 3 with Agumon in name and a dinosaur trait for a cost of 2, which is cool. And then during all turns, once per turn, when any of your Marcus Diamonds are played, this Digimon may Digivolve into a yellow Digimon card with a Rise Greymon in its name in the hand without paying the cost. And during your turn, this Digimon gets 2000 DP. Very solid. Jumping into the brand new Rise Greymon out of BT21. This one can Digivolve on top of GeoGreymon for a cost of 3, and on play, and when Digivolving for the turn, one of your Marcus Diamond is also treated as a 3000 DP Digimon, can't Digivolve, and gains Rush and Alliance, and then one of your Digimon may attack. During all turns, once per turn, when any of your yellow or red Digimon are deleted, you may place one Marcus Diamond from your trash at the top security card. And then during all turns where it's inheritable, once per turn, when any of your yellow or red tamers are deleted, you may place one Marcus Diamond from your trash as the top security card. Pretty standard and pretty cool. Jumping into the brand new SHINEGREYMON out of BT21. This one has been reviewed before in the hero video, so if you want to check out the entire hero archetype from BT21, go ahead and check that video out. But more importantly, this Digimon Digivolves on a level 5 with Rise Greymon in its name or the hero trait for a cost of 3. Its main skill is Raid, and when Digivolving and when attacking once per turn, you may delete one of your opponent's Digimon with 9000 DP or less. And for its when attacking once per turn, by suspending one of your yellow or red tamers, this Digimon gains security attack +1 and 3000 DP for the turn. Jumping into the tamer of the archetype, we have the brand new BT21 Marcus Diamond. So it can start of your main phase. If your opponent has a Digimon, you gain one memory, a memory booster that I like to call them. And then on play, one of your Marcus Diamonds may suspend, so it's pretty cool. And during all turns, once per turn, when this tamer suspends, one of your Digimon gain piercing and 3000 DP for the turn. Then one of your opponent's Digimon gets minus 3000 DP for the turn. For its security effect, you simply play it out. So very solid. Jumping into our first and only option, we have the Champion Ultimate Fighter. I love that name. For its main effect for the turn, one of your Marcus Diamonds is also treated as a 12,000 DP Digimon, can't Digivolve, and gains Rush. Then that Digimon may attack your opponent's Digimon. Your opponent's unsuspended Digimon can also be attacked with this effect. And for its security effect, you may play one Marcus Diamond from your hand or trash without paying the cost, and then you add this card to the hand. Very solid. As that is all the cards for SHINEGREYMON in the BT21 set. Let's talk about what we got here. So what I find interesting about SHINEGREYMON, and every time it gets support, is that it can either be a brand new branch to give SHINEGREYMON options, or the cards kind of gel with already is there in terms of making the deck, I wouldn't say more functional, but definitely more advanced. I think after the support we had in BT17, which was all yellow, it's really interesting to see that we jump back into a dual color yellow-red set, because I did think they were going to hold off on doing dual color red-yellow for just a little bit longer of SHINEGREYMON to give it a little bit more breathing room, but I do like this. In tandem with a lot of the other support, the support here is pretty okay, I would say. I do think that some of the effects are, I wouldn't say bad, it's just that they're different. Like having a Warping Agumon into SHINEGREYMON actually isn't that horrible, but I do think that this effect isn't going to see as much play in SHINEGREYMON as it will definitely see play in the hero trait, because as of this time, SHINEGREYMON is one of their bosses in that deck, so I do think that's going to be one of the ways that you get into it, because maybe the Warping effect is a little bit better there, just because the DP buff is definitely cool, because when it comes down to the Marcuses and the combinations with SHINEGREYMON, you do have some DP reduction of security Digimon, but you never really had a lot of buffs up until this point, so giving a lot of buff in that 2k DP is cool. The new GeoGreymon is interesting. I think that there is possibly some combo application for it, where what you want to do is simply have it Digivolve, slam down on Marcus, have the Marcus be able to Digivolve up with the GeoGreymon through its own effect. Then when you get to something like the new Rise Greymon from this set, suspend down or basically give that Marcus the ability to attack, and then let it attack. And then if it's the Marcus, obviously from BT12, which is the one everybody thinks about, this is the one that will let you Digivolve up. You go into you go to SHINEGREYMON, and you start to see where your plays are going. The lineage of this deck that has existed for a long time at this point still continues to extend out, and it's still like looking like the support is just adding new elements to it. I think the Rise Greymon having the alliance effect kind of combination, I love it. That's basically kind of like taken from the adventure archetype and put on this Digimon, because I do think that one thing I like about the new Rise Greymon is that it still isn't that bad. It definitely takes the deck in a more aggressive tone, and I actually do like that. So if anyone's wondering why I say aggressive, is that this card on play and when Digivolving uses its effect to give a Marcus the ability to have Alliance and Rush, and it can attack. The reason I think this is so cool is that if you play it with the line support of the actual BT21, say you have the GeoGreymon or the Agumon underneath the Rise Greymon. Now the Rise Greymon's already at 7,000, so if it gets a 2k buff up, it will be at 9 when it gets suspended for Alliance with the Marcus, and the Marcus can hit for a pretty high threshold, because at base, a Marcus with 3k that suspends something like the Rise Greymon down with Alliance will only be able to hit for 10. Having that extra 2,000 DP to hit for like 12 is just pretty cool, and I think it does allow the deck to do a little bit more damage. Also, the fact that if we get like a SHINEGREYMON burst mode, not burst mode, a SHINEGREYMON ace, I think that's going to make this card a lot better, because you won't care that it's suspended. But additionally, yes, carrying the same effects that if a Marcus is deleted, you put into the security stack, I think is just cool, because it keeps the lineage going, and it kind of shows you that when you get to your level 5s, your tamers can kind of hit your opponent in the face, like punch them, punch their Digimon, and then yeah, that's pretty solid. SHINEGREYMON, I talked about it in the hero deck. I think for SHINEGREYMON itself, it's an interesting card. I think if you want to play a more aggressive version of Shine, it's now available to do so, because this card is pretty just interesting for what it does. Being able to Digivolve for 3 on top of a Rise Greymon is cool, because having that lower threshold to Digivolve doesn't mean if for whatever reason you don't have a Marcus to go ahead and use its effect to suspend it and Digivolve into a SHINEGREYMON, you are able to do that for 3, and you can keep turn usually. Having Raid is a very good skill, I think, in this deck. I do think because the new Marcus gives you Pierce, it works in tandem extremely well, but I do think that this card is actually very good. When Digivolves and attacks, it can pop a 9000 DP or less Digimon. So interestingly enough, I like that it has a red effect technically, because it could have a yellow effect, but it doesn't. It chooses to have a red effect. And then for its one attacking effect, that allows you to suspend one of your yellow or red tamers and gain that security attack +1 and having that 3k DP. I really like that because this now allows you to use your other BT12 Marcuses to let you go into your burst modes, to allow you to go into ruin mode, for instance, with extra damage going into that swing. So I think that's actually just really cool. And it allows this card to actually pressure your opponent pretty quickly, because in Shine and Shine Greymon, normally if you're doing ruin mode turbo or even burst mode, usually your opponent isn't going to get like OTK'd out of nowhere. Usually it's a slow grind up instead. So this is actually pretty cool to have an aggressive option, which basically is like, it's not the panic button, it's like the angry button. You go ahead and slam this down on top of whatever level 5, and you proceed to start attacking with the right setup. This card jumps into a level 7 in your burst mode, and next thing you know, you can pretty much do a ton of damage to your opponent extremely quickly. So I do like this card. I think it's really good. And like I said, 3k DP buff, even if you don't have the other inheritables, this card will be at base 15 in its checks. That's a lot, and it's usually clearing a lot of Digimon, so I still think that's really cool and is a very good inclusion. Now, having a new Marcus, I think at this point everybody would probably meme at the fact that there's another Marcus, because it feels like every time SHINEGREYMON shows up, there has to be a new Marcus, and in this case there was. I do think that this card's interesting because it's more of a, like, I think it's weird to say like a pivoting tool, but it's like a manual pivoting tool. So basically what I mean is, say for whatever reason, you're able to go ahead and have the BT12 Marcus up, but you have a Digimon you can't digivolve into manually, like maybe you don't have enough memory. For 4, effectively, when you play this down, you can suspend that BT12 Marcus to go ahead and digivolve that Digimon into whatever you want it to be. So in theory, it's like a pivot, because it allows you to kind of do another way, because the point is it also puts a tamer on field, because it's a tamer, so you're also getting that like bigger threshold of the tamer count that you want, and it does help the archetype out a lot. So I do think that's pretty interesting to maybe run this, but I do think it's getting really tight to run Marcuses. Like, I think that's the one problem that maybe Bandai's not figuring out, is that like it's getting really tight to run Marcuses in general, because usually you want to play 4 of the BT12, some number of your BT13, any number of the other like Marcuses you want to try to like fiddle around with. So you're really running low on space to really try to put in as many tamers as possible. I really feel like this is maybe a one of, maybe, if you want, because having piercing and having 3k DP is cool, but then also it gives you that ability for if this card is suspended, you also get to give one of your opponent's Digimon minus 3000 DP. So I think the logic here is to allow your other Digimon to run over them, like the SHINEGREYMON from this set. And it is a good like pivot tool, like I said, but also it does kind of help out, I think, the very old, if someone wants to play like the yellow SHINEGREYMON deck where like you DP minus a lot of things. The one thing I like about this card is that it can give you an additional one, like when it suspends. So say Shine suspends a bunch, blows up a bunch of Digimon, but you're still missing like a little bit of extra DP, you can then give your Digimon the piercing and 3000 DP, but then additionally you hit another 3k on something, it could make the difference of blowing stuff up. So I do like the fact that it gives you an extra bump on that yellow Shine's effect. So yeah, just kind of throwing it back to that old SHINEGREYMON and giving it a little bit more credence in the metagame maybe. I think that's really cool. And then finally talking about the Champion's Ultimate Fighter, or the Champion Ultimate Fighter. I really love just the name of the card, and some of these anime cards are like whatever in terms of their art, but it doesn't matter. I love that this card is basically a way of saying, hey, I'm going to turn Marcus into a Digimon for 4 cost, and he's going to get really big, and he's also going to be able to attack, and then yeah, he can run over your Digimon. And your opponent might be like, what? And then, yeah, that's like kind of what this card is for me. I think it's an interesting card. I think it's a weird card, though, because I do get what the logic here is. I think the logic here is to allow your Marcus that if you don't even have any Digimon, the Marcus becomes a Digimon, and then the Marcus clears a threat away from your field. So I think that's really cool in the actual, like, grand scheme of things, but I do think it comes with a really weird, I want to say cost, but more like a really weird thought process, because it's basically a card you're running for if things go bad, in my opinion, and people may disagree with me. The point is, this card isn't searchable, because like unless you're using training specifically, so you can't like memory boost for this. You can't like search it with Agumons or whatever because it's not a Marcus. So this card technically is just like you have to hard rip it off of training or something. But point aside is that what it really just boils down to is it gives you a way to like fight back when you don't have any Digimon, and I think that's kind of funny. For its security effect too, when you get to play a Marcus for free from the hand or the trash, and then you get to play get this card in your hand, I think that's actually insane. I think it's insane because the security effect basically just says that if for whatever reason you don't have you have Marcuses in the trash, you could just spot them back out, like one of them, and then you get to put it into the hand. So effectively meaning that in a really bad grind game where you don't have any Digimon, your Marcuses technically can take up the ladder of being your Digimon to fight your opponent, which is kind of funny because if you really think about the security effect, if you have a Marcus in trash or in your hand, you get to play the Marcus, right? Then you get to add this to your hand, and then the next turn when it passes back to you, if it's, you know, obviously it's your opponent's attacking you, on your turn, you could say, well, I don't have anything. I'm going to slap this down, turn your Marcus you just got played from your security or your hand or your trash, whatever, to the battle area, and then swing and you run over something. It is just hilarious. I think it's a cool mechanic. Like I said, I don't know how many copies you would play of this card. I don't really want to talk about it in this specific part of the video as what's the scoop's more informative, but I do think that the application of this card is still very solid. So if you want to play SHINEGREYMON for the first time, or if you're revamping the deck, this is a funny card to look at and it is very good. But guys, that's all I've got for you today. I do hope you enjoyed this, as I am a big fan of SHINEGREYMON. I actually have built the deck twice, and I do think that with the new support, it does make the deck a little bit more interesting if you want to tech some stuff. I still think it doesn't change too much. I didn't mention Koromon much because, yes, you could change Koromon out because it is kind of designed around suspending your Tamers, but it is up to you depending on which you prioritize. But it is still a solid egg nonetheless. And yeah, pretty much just depends on how you want to play your deck. But this has been SHINEGREYMON and BT21, and this has been Brad from the Ed Army signing off. And for all of you out there, to sign on.